Welcome to YourTown. My name is Kierstyn Berlin, and this is Rob Carver, our guest. We're at the Carmel Design Center, continuing our design series. Welcome.
Thank you, Kierstyn.
Today, I wanted to talk about, we finished our conversation the last episode with fireproof homes and building in Big Sur. And so I wanted to follow up on that conversation and get some more information about why that's important and the background of why you're navigating that process and what you hope, where you hope you're going with that.
Okay. Well, my dad was a fireman, and so I had three brothers, so the four of us were kind of fascinated by Engine Company Number 4, the Glen Cove Fire Department. And we used to get to go to musters and things like that and ride on the back of the fire trucks. And they had probably an early 1900s hook and ladder. It was so old it had wooden wheels. Mm-hmm. And they were going to auction it off to get a newer engine. And so my brother and I, we were probably like 8 and 10 years old. We pooled our savings and bid like $70, $71 or something. And the newspapers got a hold of that. And this thing was like 70 feet long, right? Mm. And we were hoping to win it and put it in the backyard. Mm. And we didn't win it, but the city that did get it in upstate New York invited us to come up to the parade when they unveiled the engine to the whole community. So that was kind of fun. Mm. And then several years, 20, 30 years later, moved to Big Sur, and some friends of mine started the Mid-Coast Fire Brigade in Palo Colorado Canyon and invited me to join. And first I did their logo, and then went through the training and became a volunteer fireman, and was a active fireman for about 10 years, and also designed their firehouse, which is there today. Mm-hmm. And then became involved in the community's efforts to make the community able to withstand a wildland fire, which this was back in probably at least 10 years ago. So the county was doing a CWPP, County-wide Wildfire Protection Plan, and I was involved in some of the early meetings of that, but that is still going on today. Mm-hmm. And I think being fire safe is there are elements of that at the state level, the county level, the local level, your street, and also your home and your property. So the state is now realizing, after the Paradise Fire and things like that, how devastating wildland fires can be, and that there are things that people can do about it, including, things like the CAL FIRE, State Fire Department, got a grant for about $400,000 or $500,000, and has been working on Palo Colorado Road and Garrapatos Road, clearing. They've had crews of, I think, National Guard and CDF firefighters for months now, clearing about 60 feet on either side of the road. And that allows the firemen, in the event of a fire, to be safe in going up and down those roads. We did a lot of that privately, mm-hmm. but it was, it's a huge task, and so they're doing it now, and everybody feels much safer.
Right. Well, it seems like after the 2016 that we had that big fire up in Palo, right? It seemed like they had a lot of access issues. Right. And a lot burned back there.
Where 57 homes were lost.
Yeah.
And my home was very nearly lost. I had to defend it myself, and we foamed it. There's a company that will foam your house, mm-hmm. and you can either buy a system to foam it yourself, or they hire them in an event if they're around, mm-hmm. to do the work. Which luckily, Jay Garrettson, who's Ted Turner's caretaker, I ran into him the night before, and he gave me the number of these people, and I called them, and they protected protected my house, and then helped me when the fire got right up to the house.
Right. Well, this ties into a conversation that Mark and I are always having about why does design matter, and from a very practical sense, the way that we're designing roads, the way that we're maintaining the lands, the way that we're building our homes, and an awareness of the ecoclimates that we're placing ourselves in and enjoying needs to be an integrated part of that design process. And my understanding is that fire is a very healthy, regular process to the reproduction of especially redwoods and pine trees. And we're sort of shocked and devastated when the natural cycles aren't coming through, and then suddenly, everything is burning because it's 20 years past the natural cycle lines. And so it's never made sense to me why we haven't considered that really seriously. And I'm sure a lot of people have, especially in Palo, but it seems like we're just, here's how we build a house in California, let's build it that way, and not necessarily integrating our natural systems around us. And so I think this is so much of what I want to reveal in these segments of what is holistic design, what does it mean to design and impact people's lives in a really meaningful way. Mm-hmm.
Well, the state several years ago did institute in the building code a section called WUI, which is the Wildland Urban Interface. Mm-hmm. And if you are mapped in that area, which most of Monterey County, at least most of the Big Sur area, is within that, then you have to do certain criteria when you build a new home. Now, it doesn't address an existing home. Right. But it's best practices, and they are refining that code. And there's actually a movement now within the state to get certification. If you do that, you get certification. And the reason for that is that there is a pending looming insurance crisis. Right. And so we just had a meeting down the coast with some of the people from the Department of Insurance and county supervisors, state officials. What's happening now is that insurance companies are no longer, like my insurance company, State Farm, is no longer writing fire insurance policies or any insurance policies in state of California, the entire state. And I know of other insurance companies that are doing the same thing. Well, that's a serious problem. Mm-hmm. And so what the state is now moving towards is if you meet the WUI mm-hmm. design criteria, then the insurance company cannot cancel you, mm-hmm. which I think is a great interim step solution, forward. Yeah. Right. Because I had friends that lost their homes in the Sobranis fire, mm-hmm. and their insurance company had just canceled them within like a month, and then all of a sudden they lost everything.
Wow. So, well, I think there was one person insured. You said 50-something homes burned in 16, yeah. And I think it was only one home that I know of that actually had insurance that covered it. Yeah. And they're actually not able to build because they can't access the property.
Right. Yeah. Right. There's a few, but not very many. Right. And so we're thinking at Studio Carver that, and we're actually building right now a fireproof home. Mm-hmm. And that involves material choices, mm-hmm. it involves landscaping choices, mm-hmm. and also site design and things like that. And it's I think something that if you have a fire and your house survives the fire, if you can't get insurance, it doesn't matter because you don't need insurance. So can you give us maybe one example, maybe from landscape, and one example from building methods and material selections to how, like a compare and contrast to what's typically there to what a material that you might use and what the difference would make? In the landscaping, there are two zones for fuel management, 30 feet out and 100 feet out. That's the average, but you have to look at your site, because if you are mm-hmm. On the brink of a very steep hill that's heavily vegetated, then you're going to need a lot more than 100 feet, or you're going to need to do something about that. Right. So Also, you don't need...
You're talking about clearing away brush.
Right.
Distance
So,
from the
so
home.
what you want to do is you want to clear down to about 6 inches. You don't want to take it down to the bare earth, because then you'll have erosion problems.
Right.
So you take it down to 6 or 8 inches, whatever. You limb your trees up about 6-8 feet tall, depending on again on the slope.
Okay.
But you can leave ornamental bushes in sort of islands, and that actually they find that actually is better than clearing them out because of the wind and things that are generated. That if you have some brush, as long as it's sort of in an island and it's cleared around it, and there's nothing right up overhanging or right next to the house, that that's what you want to do with your landscaping, so it doesn't have to look bad. It can actually look quite beautiful if the thought goes into it. And we're working with a landscape designer, Marie Goulet, who is working with us to develop a complete package of fire-safe house, fire-safe landscape.
And is she local that really is specializing in this sort of?
She is now. I
Yeah.
mean, we're working together. This is something that we see is critically important to everybody. And so, it's just, we've been doing a lot of research. There are, fire academies that research wildland fires and their behavior so we can better understand. It's interesting that the actual extreme heat of a wildfire typically on a home is usually for less than a minute. So if you can survive that extreme heat for a minute and not have something on your house catch on fire, chances are good that you'll survive. Another issue is embers. So if you have a fire and your neighbor or somewhere, the forest next door is burning, embers coming onto your house or your deck or your roof can spread the fire.
Right.
So you have to address that.
Right.
And there's many ways to do that. We're working with 2 companies that do sprinkler systems, and they have additives to help the water penetrate so that it doesn't just brush off if your house is dirty or something, the water's not going to stick. So they have these additives that, and you can, it can be automatic, it can be remotely operated from your cell phone. So you can have a camera on your house if you're not there.
So that'd be something where you just spray your house down?
You spray your house, you spray
before
around
the fire's
the house.
coming?
Yep.
On the outside?
On the outside.
Yeah.
Right, because you want to keep the fire away.
Because fire sprinklers I think of on the inside.
Well, you have to have that also.
Yeah, right.
But those are really to help somebody get out of a house that's burning or a building that's burning.
Of course, yeah. It's
more than
more of an emergency moment. Yeah.
Right, and so 2 different things. But in a wildfire situation, it's the fires coming from the outside, and they are survivable. I mean, you see a lot of times pictures, and it's like, wow, why did that home survive?
So actually, after this interview, I'm interviewing somebody that lives in Big Sur and survived that fire, and because of the way they were designed, actually saved the ridge all above them. Yeah. So I think I just saw firsthand what a difference that made, not only to him, but everybody who was saved behind him. I mean, it's huge. It's huge.
And so I think a lot of the people that rebuilt after the Oakland fire, incorporated a lot more fireproof materials than they had before. There was a historic fire in Berkeley. I think it was in the 1920s, 30s, something like that. And at the time, the Vogue style was this craftsman shingle. So the house was shingled, dry wood shingles, like kind of what we call kindling.
Right.
And the roof was kindling, and the whole town burned. The whole north side of Berkeley just burned up. So they didn't, when they rebuilt, they didn't.
I mean, they're
use
using
those
all
materials.
California materials. It seems easy, and wood has that flexibility, and
So I think you have to. It's just something that now is going to be a very important part of building a house. You have the LEED movement and the non-toxic materials and sustainable design. Well, sustainable design, if your house doesn't survive a fire, it's not very sustainable.
It's not sustainable. So and it comes, it's like that weighing of, okay, the chemicals to prevent it from burning versus your house burning.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of toxic fumes that come out of a fire, of a house fire,
Right.
is unbelievable.
I'm sure.
I've been inside burning houses, and it's you know it's bad. You know, you don't want to breathe it. So
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, the last conversation that we had, just going back to that conversation around the Monterey Peninsula is really, I think, lucrative for people because, and I would say that like biophilia, integrating architecture with nature and life is becoming sort of trendy even nationally and internationally. This movement has come a long way in the last 20, 30, 40 years as far as coming into like mainstream awareness and systems. And I do believe our international market exists largely because of the way we integrate into nature. And in Carmel, you see, our trees are part of our roads. They're they take the place of our sidewalks. Like it's very interesting to me that this is a trend. I would say this is something people are wanting. They're wanting more nature in their urban spaces, in their communities, and so I think this is just a natural place to go with it. So.
But we can coexist with the trees
Right.
and the forest if we manage the forest
Right.
and manage the design of the home. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
and that's the goal. And we were behind the curve, and now we're catching up. It was unfortunate that it always takes disasters to wake everybody up to what needs to be done. But if you think, and I don't think we're talking about adding significant cost, if any, to the building of the home, right?
Well, you're
Compared-
saving.
certainly
You're
compared-
saving if you're not
lose it
losing
all,
your home.
what's the cost of that? So-
Right. I mean,
so-
yeah. So you're working on a system, at your office. Are you also, because you're also working with the city and the county, are you trying to develop a system for other people to use, or is it just for your
yeah.
office?
It's just ideas, and we're building a house right now that our goal is that it's fireproof, and when that's done, we'll publish it, and we will share our ideas, and it's people can come to us, and we can design them a home, or we can retrofit their home and help them make it more survivable, but it's not, we're going to, what do you call it when you free source it, or
Right.
open source?
Right.
Open source, it's everybody needs to do it. Some people will do it themselves, some people will want us to do it, some people will have somebody else do it. But I think that there's a momentum now, there's a lot of good things happening, there's a lot of materials available, and that will just like the green movement, that will
Right.
only improve over time.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you.
Lovely to have you.
Okay.
Thanks.